Radha Madhav Kunja Bihari Radha Madhav Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन 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 यमुना तीर वनचारी यमुना तीर वनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपी जना वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी गोपी जना वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन यमुना तीर वनचारी यमुना तीर वनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी 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 हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Vidai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jai Om Vishnu Pad Param Sarvajagacharya Stotra Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Nama Acharya Srila Thakur Haridas Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Garadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Yamuna Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Rani Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Harinama Sankirtana Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad-Bhagavatam Ki Jai. ISKCON DVT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Govinda Ji Ki Jai. Jagannath Balaram Subhadra Devi Ki Jai. Go Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you everyone for coming. Today is a special day. What day is it today? Mother's Day. So we'll talk about mothers a little bit. In particular, I was requested to talk about Ganga Ma, because Mother Ganga, she's the Supreme Mother. We have so many mothers, of course, but this Janu Saptami is coming up, so it's requested to say something about that. But before we go any further, we should say Mangalacharanam to invoke auspiciousness. Om Agnana Timiranthasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yuddhapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhya evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. We say that there are 7 mothers. In Hinduism, it would seem almost everyone is a mother. But Mother Ganga is particularly significant. I didn't really have any very solid plan for what to speak about in this regard, but there are some very nice quotes that we find in Srila Prabhupada's books. Throughout his books, he's talked about Ganga in several places. And so among them, in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, in the 3rd canto, chapter 5, text number 41, there's a very beautiful verse. The lotus feet of the Lord are by themselves the shelter of all places of pilgrimage. The great clear-minded sages, carried by the wings of the Vedas, always search after the nest of your lotus-like face. Some of them surrender to your lotus feet at every step by taking shelter of the best of the rivers, the Ganges, which can deliver one from all sinful reactions. The Srila Prabhupada's purport here explains, the Paramhamsas are compared to royal swans who make their nests in the petals of the lotus flower. The Lord's transcendental bodily parts are always compared to the lotus flower because in the material world, the lotus flower is the last word in beauty. The most beautiful thing in the world is the Vedas, or Bhagavad-gita, because therein, knowledge is imparted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. The Paramhamsa makes his nest in the lotus-like face of the Lord and always seeks shelter at his lotus feet, which are reached by the wings of the Vedic wisdom. Since the Lord is the original source of all emanations, intelligent persons, enlightened by Vedic knowledge, seek the shelter of the Lord just as birds who leave the nest again search out the nest to take complete rest. All Vedic knowledge is meant for understanding the Supreme Lord, as stated in the Bhagavad-gita. Vedaishta sarvairda hameva vedyaha. Intelligent persons who are like swans take shelter of the Lord by all means and do not hover on the mental plane by fruitlessly speculating on different philosophies. The Lord is so kind that He has spread the river Ganges throughout the universe so that by taking bath in that holy river, everyone can get release from the reactions of sins which occur at every step. There are many rivers in the world which are able to evoke one's sense of God consciousness simply by one's bathing in them, and the river Ganges is the chief amongst them. In India there are 5 sacred rivers, but the Ganges is the most sacred. The river Ganges and the Bhagavad-gita are chief sources of transcendental happiness for mankind, and intelligent persons can take shelter of them to go back home, back to Godhead. Even Sripad Shankaracharya recommends that a little knowledge in Bhagavad-gita and the drinking of a little quantity of Ganges water can save one from the punishment of Yamaraj. Anyone know that verse? Bhagavad-gita kinchit adhita Ganga jala lave karnika pita Sakritapi yena murari samarsha kriyate yasya yabena nacharcha. You don't have to have an interview with Yamaraj. If you've drunk even a little bit of Ganga Jal and studied Bhagavad-gita even a little bit, and tried to sincerely worship Murari even once. Now, where does the Ganges come from? Where's the origin of the Ganga? Vishnu's lotus feet. Someone else says Viraja. What else? Sorry? Yeah. Lord Trivikrama, otherwise known as Vamanadev, when he was cheating Bali Maharaj, this is many, many, many thousands of years ago, Bali Maharaj was the king of the Daityas, and he was a demon. And he was not really very interested in giving very much to Lord Vishnu. In fact, even his guru, Shukracharya, was also advising him that be careful with this Vishnu, he'll take everything away from you. So people sometimes don't like to worship Vishnu because they know that. So he was doing sacrifice. Even the demons do sacrifice. And he was doing sacrifice in a place called Bhrigukacha. Does anyone know where that is? It's in modern-day Gujarat. Now we call it Bharuch, on the bank of the, Narmada, I guess. So Vamanadev thought that, let me cheat this demon. So he went there in the form of a dwarf Brahmana. And he was very cute. And Bali Maharaj had no hesitance to offer him whatever he wanted. He said, anything you ask, I'll give it to you. And Vamanadev said, are you sure? He said, yes, no problem. He said, okay, I only want 3 steps of land. And Bali Maharaj was calculating as if he were in a superior position, just as we always do. And he said, well, I can give you much more than that. And Vamanadev said, no, 3 feet of land will be sufficient for me. 3 steps will be sufficient for me. So with his first step, he covered the entire cosmic manifestation. With the second step, he went even further than that. And then he came back to Bali Maharaj and said, sir, where shall I place my 3rd step? And by this time, Bali Maharaj was astonished and humbled enough that he said, you can put it right here. I surrender. And even at that point, Shukracharya tried to convince him that he's going to take everything away from you. If he takes everything away from you, then what's going to happen to me? You're my patron. But he surrendered anyway. And therefore the Lord became his doorman in reciprocation for his love. But in this pastime, when Lord Vamanadev took his step in the outer sphere of the universe, he actually kicked a hole in this universe. Every universe is like a bubble floating in this ocean of karana, the ocean of cause. And the water from that ocean came through the hole in the universe that was created by the toe of Lord Vishnu. Therefore, the whole Ganges water is considered to be charanamritam. Either way you look at it, when I went to Mayapur in 1978 and was bathing in the Ganga with one of my godbrothers, a sannyasi, and he was meditating, he was swimming in the Ganges, and he was meditating out loud that all this water is the perspiration of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because that's also true. We know that this ocean was filled up with perspiration from the Supreme Personality of Godhead in this form of Mahavishnu. But even if that weren't enough, then Lord Vamanadev also kicked a hole in the universe and allowed that water to come into this one. So it's all, in a sense, charanamritam. And therefore, anybody who takes birth or anybody who takes bath in the Ganges is automatically purified of all sins. Very, very purifying. Even a little bit of contact with the Ganga Jal, it's very, very purifying. People go, my wife recently went to the Prayag Kumbh Mela, and people take back small bottles of water or large jugs of water and keep it all year round, just to keep auspiciousness in the house. So, That's the origin of the Ganga. Now, in the 3rd canto, chapter 8, text 5, there's another very nice verse. Svardhunyu udadraihi svajata kalapair upasprashas charanopadhanam padmam yad archanti ahirajakanyaha sapremanana balibhir vararthaha. The sages came from the highest planets down to the river region, to the lower region, through the water of the Ganges, and therefore their hair on their heads was wet. They touched the lotus feet of the Lord, which are worshipped with various paraphernalia by the daughters of the Serpent King when they desire good husbands. Purport: the Ganges water flows directly from the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, and its course runs from the highest planet of the universe down to the lowest. All through the universe, this Ganga is running. It comes from the higher planetary systems first, then it comes into this planetary system in the Himalayas. If anybody here has ever been to Haridwar or Rishikesh, many people, so you know. At that point, it's called Haridwar, because at that point you can go into the heavenly realm. And Lord Shiva took this water on the crown of his head because there were 2 conditions long, long ago. Ganga agreed to come to this world to begin with. The agent of that agreement was Lord Vamanadev kicking a hole in the universe. But it was actually, there was a backstory to that as well, which is that when the sons of Sagar Maharaj were incinerated by the angry glance of Kapila Dev, they had to be delivered somehow. And so it was decided that the Ganga would come to this world. Bhagirathi, Dilip and his father was Sagar Maharaj, and his son was Bhagirath, I should say. So they wanted to induce the Ganga to come into this planet as well to deliver these 60,000 sons who were incinerated by the angry glance of Kapila Dev. Indra had stolen the horse, the victory horse that they sent out to proclaim the sovereignty of their father throughout the universe, but the horse disappeared, and so they were sent to search for this horse, and they found the horse very peacefully tied up to a post in the ashram of Kapila Muni. How did the horse get there? Indra put it there. Sometimes he does this sort of thing. But they made the postulation, they were quick to judge. So let us take note of that. They were quick to judge that this Kapila Dev must have stolen the horse. And so they became angry with Kapila Dev and broke his meditation. And when his meditation was broken, he just looked at them and burnt them to ashes, all 60,000 of them, right on the spot. So be careful. What is that? Tulasi isa sangsara mein, what is it? Sabse miliya bhai, na jane kis roop mein, Narayan mil jai. The same logic is applicable here, I think. So even though he's not Narayan, but the idea is that you never really know who you're dealing with in this world. So be careful and show respect to all living beings. Anyway, they didn't do that, and at least they taught us by their example what not to do. So they were incinerated, and for that reason they had to be delivered. Now, Bhagirathi, his father, Dilip, was unsuccessful in bringing the Ganga to this world. He was successful in the sense that his mission was ultimately fulfilled, but he wasn't the one to fulfill it. So this is another thing that we can take note of. Sometimes we spend our whole life working very hard, and we don't get what we expect or what we try to get for it, but we do accomplish what we're intended to accomplish, because we're not the primary actor. Someone else is actually acting through us. Or if only our karma is playing itself out according to a preset script that we can't change and have very little say in. But if the Lord himself is working through us, then still his will is being done through our efforts, even if on the face of it they don't seem to be successful. This was the case with Dilip Maharaj. He didn't get what he wanted to get. His sons had to continue that endeavor. And eventually, Bhagirath was successful. He gave the charge of the kingdom to his own sons. He himself went and performed severe austerities for many, many thousands of years on the slopes of the Himalayas, trying to gain the favor of Ganga. Finally, when Ganga Devi was pleased with his efforts, she offered him a benediction. And he said, please come into this world and deliver the souls of this world in the way that you do in the higher planetary systems. And so Ganga was conditional in her agreement. She said, I can do that, but number one, I don't want to take all the reactions of the sinful people who come and bathe, because I know this Martyaloka, it's a very dubious place. And there's a lot of colorful characters here that I don't necessarily really, so that's condition number one. And then the second condition was, anybody remember? Just no, I don't. That's right. That I'm going to be coming down, and I'm going to descend into this world with full enthusiasm. And there's not very many people who will be able to contain that. So you have to find some competent person who's able to bear the weight of the pressure of my descent into this world. And that, of course, is Lord Shiva, we see so many pictures of the Ganga coming from his forehead. So it hits his forehead with massive pressure. It gets lost in his jata for a long time. Finally, he releases it. And then the Ganga comes. Therefore, it's called Haridwar. If you're a Vaishnava, you call it Haridwar. If you're a Shaiva, you call it Haridwar. But either way, it works out. So that's the place where Ganga actually appears in this world. And on this planet, according to our sensual perception, Ganga runs a course of maybe 2,000 kilometers, something, right? 2,528, if I'm not mistaken, from Gangotri all the way to Ganga Sagar. Ganga Sagar, that was the place where Kapila Dev was executing his austerities, by the way. Interesting fact. So anyway, Ganga then comes into this world and runs the course from the highest planet down to the lowest. And this Ganga flows directly from the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. If a river flows thousands and thousands of miles, a perfect yogi can at once transport himself from one place to another simply by dipping in its water. This is something that even in theory is going to be forgotten fairly soon. But some people are aware of this, that yogis who are actually very accomplished, they can go into the Ganga at any place along the course of its flowing. And they can come out in any other place along its banks. They can go up into the higher planetary systems. They can go down into the lower planetary systems. Sometimes it happens like this. We've seen some interesting things like this in the Ganga. But at any rate, this is what happens here. So sages came down from Satyaloka taking advantage of the flowing water, a process of transportation made possible by the power of mystic yoga. The Ganges is the only celestial river which flows throughout the universe, and great sages travel all over the universe via this sacred river. The statement that their hair was wet indicates that it was directly moistened by the water originating from the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. Another name for Ganges. Ganges has many, many names. Does anybody know another one of them? There's Ganga. Vishnupadi. For this reason, she's called Vishnupadi. She's coming from the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. Swardhuni, because she flows in the heavenly realm. So many names Ganga has. So whoever touches the water of Ganges to his head surely touches the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu directly and can become free from all effects of sinful acts. If after taking a bath in the Ganges or being washed of all sins, this is Prabhupada, a classic, typical Prabhupada addition here. If after taking a bath in the Ganges or being washed of all sins, a man guards himself against committing further sinful acts, then certainly he is delivered. But if he again takes up sinful acts, sinful activities, his bath in the Ganges is as good as that of an elephant, who nicely takes his bath in a river, but later spoils the whole thing by covering himself with dust. Anybody ever seen this? No, because we don't have elephants anymore. It used to be that the absolute centrum of power in South Asia was where? Huh? Hastinapur, that's long, long back. More recent than this. Kolkata is too recent. Somewhere in between. Huh? Vijayanagar was in the right direction, but further back. Magadha. Why was Magadha so powerful? Nowadays, if you go to Bihar, you'd never guess. I hope there are no Biharis here. When I was in Mauritius, many of the... You're from Bihar? Sorry. It's okay, my wife is also of that stock. So. When I was recently in Mauritius, Lokanath Maharaj was giving the lecture, and he was talking about Jarasandha. He was also called Bhojraj. For that reason, they speak Bhojpuri there. And Maharaj pointed out, for your information, Jarasandha was from Bihar. Anyway, so that used to be the epicenter of all political power in South Asia. And one of the main reasons was, what did they have? They had one advantage that very few other kingdoms had. Huh? Chanakya Pandit, he was the Maurya court, right? Or Guptas. Elephants. They had war elephants. Nowadays you can't really find elephants too much in the north. A little bit in the south, they keep some in the temples, but that's about it. Anyway, so we haven't seen elephants, but if we'd seen elephants, then we know when an elephant takes a bath, after he comes out from the bath, he fills his trunk with dust and blows it all over himself. Why they do that, a biologist may be able to tell you some scientific answer for it. But the point is that if somebody takes bath in the Ganga and then comes back and does all the same nonsense that impelled him to go and take that bath to begin with, then it ruins the whole thing. All right, so anyway, now here's a very nice purport that Prabhupada writes in the second canto, also related to the Ganga. He says, when one is particularly adherent to the process of padasevanam, this process gradually includes other processes such as seeing the form of the Lord, touching the form of the Lord, or circumambulating the form or temple of the Lord, or visiting such places as Jagannath Puri, Dwaraka, and Mathura to see the Lord's form, and bathing in the Ganges, or Yamuna. Bathing in the Ganges and serving a pure Vaishnava are also known as Tadiya Upasanam. This is also Padasevanam. The word Tadiya means in relationship with the Lord. Service to the Vaishnava, Tulasi, Ganges, and Yamuna are included in Padasevanam. All these processes of Padasevanam help one to advance in spiritual life very quickly. So, Ganges had descended into this world as Vishnupadi. Later on she was given names like Janhavi and Bhagirathi. Bhagirathi because Maharaj Bhagavath's prayers induced her to come here. Janhavi, why is she called Janhavi? Janhamuni. What happened? What's the story there? Anybody know?
When he was performing austerities, the Ganges flooded the ashram.
That's right. Ganges came and flooded his ashram while he was meditating, and he got angry and thought, okay, well, I'll teach you. And he drank the entire Ganges. And then, according to different sources, we have different stories. But Ramayana, and I believe it's maybe Agni Purana, I don't remember. But the Ganges later came out of his ear. And for that reason, she's called Janhavi. Anyway, so after 1,000 millenniums, the water of the Ganges descended on Dhruvaloka, the topmost planet of this universe. So Shukdev Goswami has in this way described the glories of the Ganges River. The water of the Ganges is called Patita Pavani, the deliverer of all sinful living beings. It's a proven fact that a person who regularly bathes in the Ganges is purified both internally and externally. Externally, his body becomes immune to all kinds of disease, and internally, he gradually develops a devotional attitude towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Throughout India, many thousands of people live on the banks of the Ganges, and by regularly bathing in her waters, they are undoubtedly being purified both spiritually and materially. Many sages, including Shankaracharya, have composed prayers in praise of the Ganges, and the land of India itself has become glorious because such rivers as the Ganges, Yamuna, Godavari, Kaveri, Krishna, and Narmada flow there. Anyone living on the land adjacent to these rivers is naturally advanced in spiritual consciousness. If you don't feel like that, then look around. Here in America, we don't have these rivers, and see the difference. See the difference, for example, in how the residents of this country dealt with a Hurricane Katrina, maybe 10, 15 years ago, and the way that just a few months after that, residents of Mumbai dealt with floods that happened there. Very different reaction. Or, for example, the way that the residents of even Fukushima, Japan, dealt with a nuclear disaster in their backyard. It's a very different reaction. So consciousness is affected by the association that we keep. And that's a very important point. If we associate with water that has flowed from the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu on a regular basis, then the consciousness becomes purified. If we associate with foodstuffs that are cooked by non-devotees, or especially if we're eating sinful things, then the consciousness will be affected. Bhunjate te tuagham papam, Krishna says, ye pachanti atma karanat. Because they only cook for themselves, they're just eating so much sin. This is what Bhagavad-gita says. Therefore, devotees only eat prasadam, and devotees associate with only pure things, spiritual sounds, spiritual sights, spiritual tastes, spiritual people. Yes, do you have a question or a comment?
Can you please clarify for the younger people who don't know what happened
in Mumbai, I mean, there was a great flood, and many people were put out of their homes, and it was a great disaster. But by and large, it didn't result in the same kind of riots that we saw in New Orleans, for example, because people's consciousness is by nature a little bit more sattvic and peaceful. And it's because the culture itself conveys, to a large degree, the mood of this spiritual advancement. This civilization of, human civilization really means closer to Dharma, closer to spiritual realization. And to the extent that it's manifest, even on a social level, it can prevent this kind of thing from happening. So that's another topic of another lecture, perhaps. But if possible, one should bathe in the waters of the Ganges or Yamuna, or in the absence of the Ganges and Yamuna, one may bathe in the water of the sea. Here we have that option too, if you dare. Now that brings us to another topic, because we see nowadays that the Yamuna, the Ganga, and even here, the ocean. When I grew up in Los Angeles, my parents used to take me to Point Fermin, near the Long Beach Harbor. And we used to watch the seals and even the sea elephants playing in the water there. I don't think that you can see them so much there anymore, because it's different now. There's been a lot of pollution there. Even worse, you can say, is the condition of the Ganga now, in terms of pollution. And Yamuna is hundreds of times exceeding the lethal limit set by the government of India for contamination in the water there. And so a person is challenged, a person of faith in particular is challenged at this point. I mentioned the other day that even one of the chief priests in the most esteemed temples in Vrindavan, after 500 years of following this tradition of bathing in the Yamuna, he gave it up because the water is just too contaminated. And it really is contaminated. It's full of all sorts of things. For example, back to the Ganga, especially south of Kanpur, there's a lot of leather industry and releasing chrome into the Ganga there. It's very, very pungent contamination, and a person has to process this. There are different ways that people deal with it. Some people consider, well, the Ganges or the Yamuna, these are goddesses in the form of the river, but they're also transcendental to the pollution here. The Ganga cannot be contaminated. We often hear this thing. In fact, the Ganges will purify another place. Just as an interesting anecdote here, Srila Prabhupada's sister, Pisima, we used to call her, she's no longer in this world, but shortly before she left this world, maybe in the 1980s, my godbrother B.B. Govinda Maharaj, he used to be called Ayodhyapati Prabhu before he took sannyas. He saw Prabhupada's sister was sitting on the back steps of Srila Prabhupada's apartment in Vrindavan. And he saw that when she got up, she took out a small vial and she started sprinkling that on the steps where she was sitting. And his curiosity was piqued by this. And so, with great caution and tremendous respect, he approached her and asked her, what was she doing? And she answered him very gravely. She looked straight in his eyes and said, I'm so sinful and so contaminated that wherever I go, I feel I have the responsibility to try to purify that place behind me by taking this Ganga Jal and pouring it wherever I have sat, because I have this responsibility to the rest of the world. That kind of consciousness, if everybody had in this material world, just think how much better it would be. Anyway, I don't remember how I got on that point, but yeah, the way that we treat the Ganga is very different than that, isn't it? Everyone urinates into the Ganga, or they allow it to go on, indirectly, directly or indirectly. Yamuna as well, it's the same thing. There was a Ganga action plan initiated by Virbhadra Mishra, who is one of the priests in the Sankartamochan temple at Kashi, and also a professor at BHU. And his interest is chiefly religious, but he allied himself with political activists and lawyers and scientists, and they did persuade the government to some degree to actually do something about the pollution in the Ganga. And it was hailed as a great success in some quarters, namely from the industrial and political quarters. So you can guess what that means. The problem is that, these are the very interest groups that are causing a lot of the corruption that ignores this sort of situation. But at any rate, part of that Ganga action plan was to also clean up the Yamuna. And the Yamuna is in a similar state, as I mentioned already. It's the contamination. Well, let me tell you from my own experience. About 2-3 months ago, we went to Brahmanda Ghat in Gokula. And it was one of the places that Srila Prabhupada used to bathe in the Yamuna, because it's one of the nicest places to bathe in the Yamuna, or at least it used to be. When I went this time, I saw that the entire shoreline of the Yamuna was lined with plastic bags and, this green faded plastic bags that are ubiquitous now in India. As if the Indians never quite got used to the transition from leaf plates to plastic bags and assumed that you could just treat the plastic bags in the same way that you treat the biodegradable leaf plates that they used to use. At any rate, now they're clogging up all the rivers, but that wasn't really the striking thing. The most striking thing that I witnessed was that the entire surface of the whole table of water flowing downstream there in the Yamuna was covered with soap suds about 12 inches high. Just a shocking sight to see. And if you go there right now, if you take a plane tonight and see it tomorrow morning, it will be there. That's the condition of the Yamuna right now. And there's a reason for that. I mentioned it the other day. Once Yamuna leaves the Himalayas, she begins to become contaminated at Yamunanagar, where there's a lot of industrial plants and facilities there. But the important thing is that 90% of the water from the Yamuna is taken out as soon as she leaves the foothills of the Himalayas and distributed to the Punjab or into UP for irrigation. 10% of the water left goes to Delhi. And what happens when it gets to Delhi? You can guess. 100% of that 10% goes into Delhi and comes out of Delhi in another form. Either it has been processed through a human body by that point, or it has been processed by a factory at that point, but none of it is pure water. And at Okhla Barrage, it's released back into the basin of the Yamuna, and that's what flows down into Krishna's holy land of Vrindavan Dham. And that's what you see floating past you if you go to Brahmanda Ghat to try to take a bath in the Yamuna, but hardly anyone will do so anymore. So one is challenged, one's faith is challenged when he sees this sort of thing. How are we going to process this? Some people take an entirely transcendent view of the Yamuna, that she's in a sacrosanct condition, can never be polluted by anything, and there's some sort of transcendental Yamuna other than this filthy water that we're looking at. Other people say, well, yes, she's pure and the goddess is manifest in the form of the water, but there's a limit to how much she's going to tolerate. And perhaps her anger comes back in the form of all the diseases that people are getting who live on the bank of the Yamuna there. They have a name for this particular hot zone in between Delhi and before it gets to the Chambal River. That's the worst, most contaminated segment of the Yamuna, ironically, in the most sacred space that it flows, in Vrindavan Dham, where Krishna had his pastimes 5,000 years ago. So some people say that, just like the farmers and other people who are having to use this water for irrigating their crops and who are getting sick as a result of eating those crops, they say that this is Yamuna's anger. And so there's a kind of a 50-50 sort of a situation. And others take a position that the Yamuna is completely immanent. The divinity is immanent within the water itself, and the goddess is the water. And in that sense, the goddess is very sick. In fact, the Ganga and the Yamuna both were long ago declared dead rivers according to scientific standards, which is that the water is dangerous to living entities outside of it, and it's also lethal and or dangerous to living entities within it. Used to be that you could find many turtles in the Yamuna, not so much anymore. The day will come, we have similar problems in the Western Hemisphere. The day will come when skeptics look back at the books that we've written here and now, and they'll actually debate amongst themselves as to whether or not there was ever such a fanciful creature as this mythological thing that they used to call amphibians. Just in exactly the same way that we wonder, well, does Ganga really ride on a makara, and is there such a thing? Think about it. So the selfishness that impels people to exploit their own mother, this is the theme of today's lecture. Srivats Goswami, this priest from Vrindavan that I mentioned earlier, he used the most strong terms imaginable. People rape and pillage and kill their own mother. This is the way that these rivers in India, and there are very few places, I think, in the world where rivers are so revered as they are in India. And yet, the most polluted river in the world is, you know what? Mother Ganga. So we should think about this on a day like today, how we treat our mother, because what does a mother do? She gives and she gives and she gives and she gives. And even if the child, every mother, how many mothers are in this room? You don't have to raise your hand, but you know that even when the children, my mother told me once, she had 3 boys going at once, all around the same age. And she used to set us 3 in a row and give us our breakfast, oatmeal. So she said she had just taken a shower and she was all fresh and clean, just prepared breakfast, and she put it in front of us. So one of us, I don't remember which one it was, As soon as we had the oatmeal, took the bowl and turned it over on top of our mother's head. Freshly cleaned, just washed her hair. So even when children do this to the mother is going to tolerate. And, but again, there are those who question, how much will she tolerate? This is something maybe each of us has to process on our own, in our own way, but at least we should be aware of the situation. And we should recognize what it is that causes such a disturbed situation. It is this crystallized, hardcore selfishness that is nourished and engendered and encouraged at every step in the modern civilization in which we're living. Highly concentrated materialism. It empowers one to ignore the personality of the river. It automatically it impels one to consider all things, including rivers and lakes and mountains and even the air that we breathe and certainly the food that we eat, as something which is primarily meant for the exploitation of humankind, rather than an intrinsic, element of a very interconnected and complex labyrinth of all life forms in this world, which are essentially all divine as well. So on Mother's Day, therefore in Hinduism, we have this very prominent concept that any respectable feminine entity is called mother. Because the mother is the most, how can you cannot get anything more giving and more pure and more holy than a person's mother. Srila Prabhupada used to say that there is not really any real love in this mature world because real love is a spiritual thing. And we're not living in the spiritual world right now, we're living in the material world. So it's all a little bit contaminated to one degree or another. But of all the loving relationships that do exist in this life and in this world, the mother's love is the most pure. And just as a cow gives her milk, and we turn around and kill the cow and eat the very cow that has fed us and nourished us as babies. So, more so, human life depends on water. You can live for even a long time if you've got nothing to eat. But nobody gets very far without water. And Yamuna is giving 100% of her water. She's already given. Whatever she hasn't given has been taken from her. But she has sacrificed herself totally for humankind. And what do we return? Defecation, industrial effluent, garbage, so much mistreatment. Anyway, coming from Vrindavan, I wanted to emphasize this thing because it's very clear to those who live there. 2 months ago, several thousand strong marched to Delhi to protest this. The failure of the Yamuna Action Plan was perceptible by enough people that they actually did that. And everybody can raise his voice and do something about it. People who have the means, it's something we can think about if we so choose on Mother's Day. But the first thing is to get the concept and recognize what it means to be a mother and how many mothers we have. How many mothers do we have? It's not just one. So, Srila Prabhupada writes also in the 6th canto, our Krishna Consciousness movement has therefore established 2 very large centers, one in Vrindavan and the other in Mayapur, Navadvip. There one may bathe in the Ganges or Yamuna and chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and become perfect and return home back to Godhead. In the 3rd canto, there's a nice purport where Prabhupada says something one of his sentences is very striking. He says, Ganges water is so pure that it can purify even the asses and cows. But anyone who, disregarding the pure Ganges, wishes to be purified instead by the filthy water flowing in a drain cannot be successful. So what happens when we turn the Ganga into a drain? The water of the Ganges is purified because it pours forth from the lotus feet of the Lord. Similarly, Bhagavad-gita is as good as the water of the Ganges because it is spoken from the mouth of the Supreme Lord. And so it is with any topic on the pastimes of the Lord or the characteristics of his transcendental activities. The Lord is absolute. There's no difference between his words, his perspiration, we've already discussed that, or his pastimes, the water of the Ganges, the narration of his pastimes, or the words spoken by him are all on the absolute platform, and thus taking shelter of any one of them is equally good. Now, in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, there's a very nice verse. Nimnaganam yatha Ganga devanam achyuto yatha Vaishnavanam yatha Shambhu Purananam idam tatha. Just as the Ganga is the greatest of all rivers, Lord Achyuta, the supreme among deities, and Lord Shambhu, Shiva, the greatest of the Vaishnavas, so the Srimad-Bhagavatam is the greatest of all the Puranas. In the Srimad-Bhagavatam, we find some glorification of this work. In the 12th canto, chapter 13, in fact, it's called the Glories of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. It's stated there that from the beginning to the end, the Srimad-Bhagavatam is full of narrations that encourage renunciation of material life, as well as nectarean accounts of Lord Hari's transcendental pastimes, which give ecstasy to the saintly devotees and demigods. This Bhagavatam is the essence of all Vedanta philosophy because its subject matter is the absolute truth, which, while non-different from the spirit soul, is the ultimate reality, one without a second. The goal of this literature is the exclusive devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If on the full moon day of the month of Bhadra, one places Srimad Bhagavatam on a golden throne and gives it as a gift, he will attain the supreme transcendental destination. All other Puranic scriptures shine forth in the assembly of saintly devotees only as long as that great ocean of nectar, Srimad Bhagavatam, is not heard. Srimad Bhagavatam is declared to be the essence of all Vedanta philosophy. One who has felt satisfaction from its nectarean mellow will never be attracted to any other literature. Just as the Ganga is the greatest of all the rivers, Lord Achyuta is the supreme among deities, and Lord Shambhu is the greatest of Vaishnavas, so Srimad Bhagavatam is the greatest of all the Puranas. In the same way that the city of Kashi is unexcelled among holy places, Srimad Bhagavatam is supreme amongst all the Puranas. Srimad Bhagavatam is the spotless Purana. It is most dear to the Vaishnavas because it describes the pure and supreme knowledge of the Paramhamsas. This Bhagavatam reveals the means for becoming free from all material work, together with the processes of transcendental knowledge, renunciation, and devotion. Anyone who seriously tries to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, who properly hears and chants it with devotion, becomes completely liberated. I meditate upon that pure and spotless supreme absolute truth, who is free from suffering and death, and who in the beginning personally revealed this incomparable torchlight of knowledge to Brahma. Brahma then spoke it to the sage Narad, who narrated it to Krishna Dvaipayana Vyas. Srila Vyas revealed this Bhagavatam to the greatest of sages, Shukdev Goswami, and Shukdev mercifully spoke it to Maharaj Parikshit. We offer our obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vasudeva, the all-pervading witness who mercifully explained this science to Brahma when he anxiously desired salvation. How many people have read Srimad Bhagavatam? Raise your hand if you've read the Srimad Bhagavatam. I see 4 hands, 4.5 hands. In all the teachings of the Vedas, you have the philosophical gist of those teachings in the form of Vedanta. Vyasadeva who has authored most of the Vedic literature, he has summarized the teachings of all the Upanishads in the form of Vedanta Sutra, also called Brahma Sutra. And Vyasadeva wrote his own commentary on that Vedanta Sutra, and that commentary of Vedanta Sutra is called Srimad-Bhagavatam. So the Srimad-Bhagavatam really is the crème de la crème of all the teachings of the Vedas. And in particular, it teaches pure devotional service. In the beginning of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, it mentions this, that any kind of materially motivated religion, such as we see in all religions worldwide, it's actually kicked out of the Bhagavatam from the very outset, and only pure, transcendental, and eternal topics are allowed to shine through its pages. Those topics happen to be topics of devotional service to the Supreme Lord, known as Vishnu or Vasudeva or Krishna. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is not only very pleasing to the ear, because the poetic content of Srimad Bhagavatam is far and above that of all the other Puranas. I know because I've read them. Vishnu Purana is a very good example of the simple Sanskrit that you'll find throughout the Puranas, very basic. But in Srimad Bhagavatam, we find such highly sophisticated poetry, there's not really any comparison. Therefore, Kapila Dev can say in the third canto, Bhavanti Hritkarana Rasayana Katha. The Katha of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's like an elixir that enlivens even the ears. What to speak of when we consider the soothing message and the enlightenment that comes through these verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The enlightenment of real knowledge of the self, and more importantly than real knowledge of the self, the direction that these verses give on how to actually engage practically in life on that level of transcendental realization. How to relish the nectar of Krishna consciousness, of Bhakti Yoga. It's taught in the Srimad Bhagavatam in great detail. We get some hint of the teachings of the Bhagavatam in the pages of Bhagavad-gita. What's the essential message of Bhagavad-gita? Anybody know? It's one of those things that Krishna mentions twice in the Bhagavad-gita. Be my devotee, worship me, bow down to me, offer your homage unto me, like this. Krishna's a very simple message. Just be a devotee of Krishna. But how to be a devotee of Krishna, we need examples, don't we? Have you noticed? You need examples. And the Srimad Bhagavatam provides us with virtually limitless examples of how to become Krishna conscious in this world. Because if a person is sensitive and sincere and attentive in hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, then it's just a matter of time before he finds the example that exactly corresponds to the situation that he or she finds himself in right now, or has been in the past and can therefore relate with, or may find himself or herself in the future and is therefore prepared for. But either way, Srimad Bhagavatam, it teaches us in great depth, in great detail, comprehensively, how to be Krishna conscious, how to dive deeply into the ocean of nectar that is Krishna consciousness. And the content of Srimad Bhagavatam is, for the last 500 years at least, been developed even further by so many Smriti literatures, Vaishnava acharyas, not only in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, but in others as well. Very, very famous book, Srimad Bhagavatam. So we encourage everyone to dive deep into drink the nectar of the Srimad Bhagavatam. If even a little drop of Ganga Jal and even a little study of the Bhagavad-gita can prevent you from having to have an unpleasant discussion with Yamaraj at the time of death. Because after all, you're going to get tapped on the shoulder. Excuse me, sir, we need to discuss your account. You've got some debits here that they're not settled yet, so... This is what happens. I mean, the world is like that for everything that we do in life, and who can stop doing? Who can sit still in life? Everybody has to act, but everything that we do, it's going to create a certain kind of reaction. And they're not always very pleasant, because it's natural to sin at every step, especially when the association that we're socialized in gives us practically no hint of any other alternative. That's the most unfortunate thing. So, Srimad-Bhagavatam, Bhagavad-gita, they allow us to pursue that alternative. And even a little bit of study, you don't have to meet with Yamaraj and discuss your karma, because you're taken out of that realm altogether. Devotional service is that powerful. Just as the water of the Ganga is so powerful that there's no question of any sin. Once you have bathed in the Ganga, the sin is all washed away. You may not anymore clean your body by bathing in the Ganga, because the Ganga is now poisonous. That's something we also need to work on. The Ganga is only poisonous because our hearts are poisonous. Who made it that way? Our activities did. But we can be, just as we can become freed from sin by that transcendental process of bathing in the Yamuna or in the Ganga, so in the same way, just by hearing Bhagavad-gita, we can become similarly enlivened and purified through spiritual knowledge. And how much more so with the Srimad-Bhagavatam. So we encourage everyone to go deeper in this way. I think I should stop now, because I don't know, but it's getting late. Does anybody have any questions or any comments on anything that we've discussed? Yes, please. There must be a microphone.
Prabhuji, you mentioned that Ganga had condition, and the first condition was that she would not take the sinful reactions. Yet we say that by bathing in Ganga, the sinful reactions are washed away. So can you consider?
This is a very, very good question. Ganga made the condition that I will come into this world as long as I don't have to assume the sinful reactions for those sinful people who bathe in my waters. But everybody knows that when you go and bathe in Ganga, your sins are washed away. So where do they go? Does anybody know? Huh? The thing is that all along the bank of the Ganga and the Yamuna, any holy river, we have so many holy places, and so many saintly persons will assemble in those holy places. Those persons actually bathe in the Ganga as well. The sinful people bathe in the Ganga, the holy people bathe in the Ganga. Just like I mentioned already about Kumbh Mela, after all the sadhus bathe there, they bathe first, then everybody else wants to go and bathe, because Ganga has been... The sadhus, when they go and bathe in the river, they assume all those reactions. And they neutralize it, because the power of a sadhu is such. Tirti kurvanti tirtani. Maharaj Yudhishthira spoke this verse in the Srimad-Bhagavatam to Vidura. He said, saints of your caliber are like walking holy places, because you have the power to turn a holy place into a holy place. The powers of the devotional service, the volition that we invest in the process of sacrifice and giving selflessly in love, real love, that is so powerful that even the most heinous sins that may have been left at a holy place by the sinful people who bathe there, they can be absorbed by the saintly person and neutralized in that way. So if you think about it, it's not really even the Ganges that is purifying you of your sinful reactions, is it? What is it? It's this contact with devotional service. Now the thing is that because we're all sentient living beings, we're all living entities with will and with desires and with hearts, I hope. We actually always have the opportunity to engage in this process of devotional service directly. In fact, it's said that the water of the Ganga, they will purify you completely, but only after long, prolonged contact. But the power of a Vaishnava, of a sadhu, is such that you become purified immediately. One of my godbrothers, elder godbrother Tamal Krishna Goswami, another godbrother was appreciating him, and he said, to be with him for half an hour is like reading Srimad-Bhagavatam for 3 months continually. That's what we're talking about. Satam prasangan mama virya samvido bhavanti hritkarna rasayana katha. The verse I've already quoted. Tad joshanad ashwapavargavartmani shraddharatir bhaktirana karmashyati. That means, Kapila Dev told his mother Devahuti, that when we hear the potent narrations about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in equally potent association of devotees who are serious and sincerely engaged in worshipping Him with all their hearts, as Krishna has defined in Bhagavad-gita, then that process is so powerful, and the taste and the enthusiasm that's generated in that association is so powerful that one is not only very quickly established on the path of liberation, but that person very quickly progresses in recognized stages of spiritual advancement, one after another, beginning with just faith. Faith alone we have, and we can invest our faith in the process of devotional service, but once we do, then we're taken from one stage to another of spiritual advancement, and it goes all the way to prema, all the way to pure love of Godhead. This is the real essence of it. And Ganga is there because we value the Ganga and the Yamuna because they are manifesting this Shakti, Bhakti Shakti, to such a great degree. To be liberated from sins, that's not such a great attainment for them. But the fact that they can also bestow love of Godhead, in particular the Yamuna, that's really something. That's a very great thing, because that's not available just anywhere else. So the real thing is devotional service. By associating with devotees in any form, the Yamuna is also a devotee, Ganga is also a devotee. We become purified like this, and we become spiritually advanced just by doing that. Is that okay? Yeah, please.
So there is also some statement about after 10,000 years the Ganges and Jamuna won't be visible in the planet.
It's already not visible anymore. I told you that already.
I was thinking of it coming now. So
yeah, I mean that there's maybe trace elements of the Yamuna once the Yamuna leaves Delhi, but that's all. Otherwise, it's pure sewage.
Do you think any improvement would happen down the road, or?
Well, it depends on who you ask, and what their motives are for giving the answers that they give. But in general, the Ganga Action Plan has not really been so highly touted outside of government and industrial circles. We would hope that the Yamuna fares better in that way, but it really depends on a person on persons like you and I taking interest and exercising our own volition to actually do something about it, because she's our mother as well. There are signs of hope. There is where there's a will, there's a way. But the sangat sanjayate kama, that the will is determined by the association. So we have to supply the satsanga that allows people to see what the problem is to begin with, and to appreciate as well the solution to that problem. That requires education. Is that okay?
Thank you.
My question was that why is Ganga considered more holy than Yamuna? Because Shri Krishna, he loves Yamuna river so much.
Yeah, that's a very perceptive observation. She caught the fact that Srila Prabhupada said a few times here that Ganga is the most holy river. In fact, not only Jiva Goswami, but other acharyas such as Vallabhacharya and many, they actually assert that spiritually the potency of the Yamuna is even more than that of the Ganga. But that's spiritually. You have to look at this, and there's a couple of things going on here. One thing going on is the neutralization of sin, which is another way to say liberation. Ganga can be seen as mukti pradayani. And that's certainly a worthwhile thing to aspire for. But to get on the positive side, beyond that neutralization of sin, to get the positive achievement of pure devotion, that's something that is even more rare. It's something very, very rare. And that's something that Yamuna Devi in particular is in a better position to supply. So Jiva Goswami says that the Yamuna's position spiritually is actually 100 times superior to the Ganga. For an ordinary person who is not so considered, doesn't appreciate the value of pure devotion that much, they won't be able to understand this. And it's maybe not even relevant to their needs either. But for a person who's actually interested in becoming Krishna conscious, then they recognize that Yamuna is very potent. And Vallabhacharya says that one reason is that the Yamuna was directly facilitating so many pastimes of Radha and Krishna, the most intimate form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his most advanced devotees. Ganga was not like that so much. Ganga was purified by the toe of Lord Vamanadev, but Yamuna was at every step participating in Radha and Krishna's pastimes and still is. Now, having said that, we also have to recognize that downstream of Prayag, there's really no difference between the Ganga and the Yamuna because they merge together, and even Saraswati joins them as well. And furthermore, in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Ganga is there, and Mahaprabhu is also engaged in that way. So in that sense, there's really no difference. So it's another one of those achintya bheda abheda relations. Achintya bheda abheda. Simultaneously, one and different. Okay? Yeah, please.
Prabhuji, we hear that in the Vedic literatures there are 7 mothers are mentioned, but among those, I don't think the holy rivers are mentioned, like the Mother Ganga and Yamuna. Is there a reason why?
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's get the concept of mother clear in our minds in the most abstract sense, and then we will be able to appreciate how and where it applies. I think that's the key here. The nurturing and the loving and the unceasing efforts that characterize motherly love that we find in these 7 mothers, for example, we can find in these holy rivers as well. And as I mentioned already, any goddess in any temple in India, you're going to call her Mata because that's how we approach. That's not only the superlative term of respect for feminine, but they actually have these properties. As one makes spiritual advancement, or even as one is more highly placed in terms of karma, these godly qualities should manifest themselves, and they do. So that's my answer, at least. Anybody else, maybe, if they have any other comments on that? Otherwise, I think we can stop here. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. What do I do?
Would you please lead the kirtana?
Okay. Can somebody keep an eye on this carefully?
I can do it.
Thank you. On the bank of the yeah, over on the other side, towards like UP. Yeah, on the UP side. Yeah, that's what we just asked them to do.
It is.
Shiva Jaya Jaya Gaura Change Aratika Shobha Janhavi Takabane Jagamana Lobha Janhavi Takabane Jaga Jana Mana Lobha Jaga Jana Mana Lobha Gauranga Rarati Shobha Jaga Jana Mana Lobha Gaurange Rarati Shobha Jaga Jana Mana Lobha Jaga Jana Mana Lobha Jaga Jana Mana Lobha Gaurange Rarati Shobha Jaga Jana jana mana lobha Gaurangera roti shobha jaga jana mana lobha jaga jana mana lobha Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. I go to Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Dakhine nitai chan Vame gadadhara Nikate Advaita Srinivasa Chatra Dhara Bhoshiyate Gaurachan Ratna Singhasane Arati Karen Brahma Hari Deva Gane Nara Hari Hari Kari Jamara Dhulaya Sanjaya Mukunda Vasu Gosharika Shankha baje ghanta baje baje karatala Madhura mridanga baje paramar shala Shankha baje ghanta baje madhur 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 baje Shankha baje ghanta baje madhur 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 baje Shankha baje ghanta baje madhur 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 baje Madhur 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 baje Shankha baje ghanta baje madhur 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 baje Shankha baje ghanta baje madhur 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 baje Madhur মাধুর মাধুর বাজে মাধুর 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 বাজে হরি বল হরি বল হরি বল হরি বল নিতাই গৌর হরি বল হরি বল হরি বল হরি বল নিতাই গৌর হরি বল হরি বল হরি বল হরি বল বাহু কোটি চন্দ্র যিনি বদন উজ্জ্বল গলদেশে বনমালা করে ঝলমালা শিবা শুকনারদ প্রেমে গদগাদ ভক্তি বিনোদ দেখে গৌরার সম্পাদ ভক্তি বিনোদ দেখে গৌরার সম্পাদ নমো বিষ্ণুপদায় কৃষ্ণপ্রেষ্ঠায় ভূতলে শ্রীমতে ভক্তিবেদান্ত স্বামী নিধি নামিনে नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivadani Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Jai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Jai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Gaur Hari Bol Vishnupadaya Jai Nama Krishna Yadavaya Nama Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama Gopal Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Sita Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavad-gita Virup Sanatana Bhakta Raghunath Amar Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasa Raghunath Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Oh Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Jai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Jai Jai Prabhupada Prabhupada Jai Vishnu Pad Paramdharjacharya Stotra Shita Shishimad Srila Abhay Chanarana Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai Nama Acharya Srila Thakur Haridas ki jai Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan ki jai Vrindavan Dham ki jai Navadip Mayapur Dham ki jai Ganga Devi ki jai Yamuna Mai ki jai Bhakti Devi ki jai Tulasi Rani ki jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai Shri Harinama Sankirtana ki jai Grantaraj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai Go Premanandi All glory Sri Samal devotees All glory Sri Samal devotees All glory Sri Samal devotees All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga Jai Srila Prabhupada
Namaste Narasimhaya. Pralada Lada Daine. Hiranyakashi Purvakshaha. Narasimhamadim Sharanam Prapadye. Tava Kara Kamalavare Nakam Adbhuta Shringa Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringa Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jayo Jagadisha Hare Jayo Jagadisha Hare Jayo Jagadisha Hare. Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare. Lakshmi Narasingha Jayo Lakshmi Narasingha Jayo Lakshmi Narasingha Jayo Lakshmi Narasingha Jayo Pralad Maharaj Jayo Pralad Maharaj Jayo Pralad Maharaj Jayo Pralad Maharaj Jaya Pralad Maharaj Jaya Pralad Maharaj Jaya Pralad Jaya Pralad Jayo Prabhupada Jayo Prabhupada Jayo Prabhupada Jayo Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Gaur Premanande.
श्री श्री लक्ष्मी नरसिंहदेव भगवान की जय। श्री प्रहलाद महाराज की जय। Thank you, Avantika, for leading the Narsimdev prayers. Before we close the curtains and proceed with announcements, we have a special guest today who's coming here to the temple for the first time, and we also heard that she's a very good singer. So we'll ask her to lead a small bhajan for a few minutes, and I'll have Malini Mataji introduce her.
Hare Krishna. We went door to door a couple of weeks ago, and we just stumbled upon this couple. They are Ravi Mishra and Babita, who happen to be from Janaki's town, which is Mithila. And Babita's mother actually used to go to the Gaudiya temple in India, and right from her childhood she has been hearing about the Mahamantra. And she's very fond of singing Lord Ram's bhajan. And when we went to their house, they bought a Srimad-Bhagavatam set, because as soon as they saw devotees, and she was very eager to sing about Lord Ram here in the temple. So we invited her to come here, and she is here today. So please welcome her to sing small Ram bhajan.
हरे कृष्णा. आई वॉन्ट कि भक्तजन सब ये चीज़ को रिपीट करें एक एक लाइन, और मैं कोशिश करूँगी कि शब्द सबको समझ में आए, सो दैट यू गाइज कैन रिपीट बैक ऑफ मी. अच्युतम केशवम कृष्ण दामोदरम, अच्युतम केशवम कृष्ण दामोदरम, राम नारायणं जानकी वल्लभं, राम नारायणं. अच्युतं केशवं कृष्ण दामोदरं, अच्युतं केशवं कृष्ण, राम नारायणं जानकी वल्लभं, राम नारायण.